You are important to the story. You have something to contribute to the story. You see, when God invites us into the story, it's definitely kindness and love and mercy, and He does the work. But at the same time, He has things for us to do. He has prepared in advance things for us to do, and He has a plan, and we're a part of it. And He gives us ways to contribute. He redeems the things that we have, even though the things we have don't seem like much. He will redeem them and make them a part of His story if we'll give them to Him. I'm talking again with my good friend Ash, Pastor Ash, as we look through Zechariah 6 in this episode. And I really encourage everyone to take a listen. It's a great conversation. God really showed up. I felt we said a lot of really important things for people to hear. Remember to go into the description and click on those links for a free ebook and Confined Space Coffee. That link will be in there, along with the code to get a certain percentage off your first order. Remember to like and follow and share, subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating on Apple or whatever. Help us to get this great content out there for free. That will really bless people. All right, let's do it.
All right, well, welcome back to Kingdom Over Coffee. Sitting in my kitchen again with the awesome Ash. How you doing, Ash?
I'm doing well, man. Long pause there. Life is fantastically troubling and troubling fantastically. Troubled fantastically, I guess. So I love the tension.
Yeah. Well, you either learn to love it or learn to appreciate it, at least, or life gets a lot more miserable, right?
That's true. Yep.
I remember my father told me one day, I was young, and I was mad about something. And it wasn't him. It was something somebody did. And he looked at me and he said, there are a lot of stupid people in the world, Britt. He goes, you're going to have a hard life if you get angry at every one of them.
That's a bar.
And I went, okay. Like,
yeah.
Is this really how I want to live my life? Is that every time there's a struggle, every time there's will I see the tension as an opportunity? Will I see the tension, the obstacles, whatever they might be? Will I see these things as opportunities? Because it doesn't sound fun, right? When James says, rejoice when you got problems. That's not what I want to do. I don't want to rejoice, but
rejoice when you have stupid people.
Right.
I'm a recovering fool myself. So,
all right. We all are.
Yeah.
That's a good part of it. Yeah. So just so we kind of put this out there, we are drinking Confined Space Coffee. I don't know if I told you this,
No.
If this is a friend of mine who has a coffee company, and he gave me a couple bags to help the show and for us to sort of promote him. What do they call it? Like a sponsor? And so we're it's good coffee. I like it. It's good.
I enjoy it too. It goes along with what we were talking about too.
Confined space or
confined
space.
Confined.
So essentially he has a history in his job career before now of working in like construction and going down into like confined spaces, people working in close quarters with each other and those sort of, and so he reaches out to people in those spaces job wise with this coffee.
Let's go.
But at the same time, he uses some of the funds and the profits that he gets from the coffee to help set people free who are in more life confined spaces like sex trafficking or other sort of issues.
It's powerful.
So
it's beautiful.
That's why when he's like, "Hey, if you want me to sponsor your show," and I'm like, yeah, what does that look like? Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Well, basically, I'll just send you a couple bags for free, and just talk about the coffee." I'm like, "I can do that.
Let's go."
So if there's anyone else out there who would like to give me money or give me any sort of cool products to talk about on the show, I don't know that it would be a case, but I'm open.
That'd be awesome.
I'm totally, and I'll share some with Ash. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Zechariah 6 today, and kind of excited about this one. This is one of my favorite passages. It's become one of my favorite passages in the Bible. Mm-hmm. It's obscure to most people, as Zechariah is.
Yeah. But
to me, this has become, especially the second part of this chapter, has become a very powerful symbolism and prophecy that we see fulfilled in the New Testament. But I think it also speaks to, again, the story that we're living. We were talking earlier before we started recording about how do we frame the right story for people, for young people, for millennials, for Gen Xers. How do we frame the right story? So much of Christianity has become what you don't do or what you should do. It's become moralism to some degree, and there's nothing wrong with good morals. There's a lot of truth to that. But even reading through the New Testament, even before Paul would get into husbands, love your wives, wives, respect your husbands, like he'd spend 2 or 3 chapters on the essence of spiritual reality.
Yeah.
So at the core of good moral ideas is a spiritual eternal reality.
Yeah.
And that's what the biblical story is trying to invite us into that eternal story that's going to last forever, that we long for. And I think we see that a little bit here.
Yeah, the words kind of, I think about it when Paul does that. He's really addressing reality and imagination.
Good. Awe and wonder. And
yes.
This is bigger. This is bigger than you're a part of something huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a story going on that has been going on that has real significance to you now. And you got to understand what God has been doing and what he is doing now before we get into like the prescriptions of how to join in and participate in it.
Yeah. And then how do you live that out? And what's really amazing about Paul doing that is a lot of times he's speaking to people who are second-class citizens, or they're slaves, or they can't read, or right. It's kind of like when Billy was talking about the woman at the well on Sunday, like Jesus telling her, revealing himself as the Messiah and saying, "God sent me here for you." Mm-hmm. That caused that dignified her experience and her story in such a way that it caused her great joy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she had to go out and tell people, right?
Yeah.
Listen to this story. And that's like, to your point, that's what Paul's doing. It's like, you're a part of something so huge.
Yeah.
That should inspire you or cause you to awe and wonder. And then in that context, just love people.
Yes. Yes. And that's and he's coming from the same prophetic imagination that we're visiting in Zechariah now.
Absolutely.
Right.
But it had to be activated in him because he treated it from the Pharisaical education that he had. He treated it as, oh, this can't happen. These people are wrong. He didn't have the imagination to see the connections until Jesus revealed himself. And also part of our conversation earlier is, I think we've talked about this, but just to remind everybody that God's word was inspired by the Spirit and requires the Spirit to understand it properly, to apply it, to understand it, because God has to give you ears to hear. And then you have to choose to listen, right? For he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Like you've got to engage with it, but you also have to have the gift of revelation. And so as we go through it today, like I said, it's the beginning is a little, I'm going to say confusing, but it has a little more elements that I'm not sure what they mean necessarily. That again, it's a little fantastical and sort of activates some imagination, leads to some good discussion. But so we're going to get to that. Any other thoughts before we?
No, let's jump in.
All right. So in Zechariah 6, it starts out with a prophecy where he turns, and I'm reading sort of out of New King James Version, and there are 4 chariots coming from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were made of bronze, and the chariots had horses leading them, and they were red, black. The different horses were red with one chariot, black with another, white and dappled, and they were strong steeds. And then he asks the angel, "What are these?" And the angel says, "These are 4 spirits of heaven who go out from their station, and they're going to 4 different directions." And he says they're going to go walk to and fro throughout the earth. And then he said, "The ones who go to the north have given rest to my spirit." Now, what translation are you reading?
I'm in the NASB.
And it says something a little different. It says something more about like his wrath or something, right? What does it say there? In verse, what's that, 8?
Appeased my wrath.
Appeased his wrath. So you've got this image that should be a little familiar if you know anything about Revelation. You've got these 4 different kinds of horses going in 4 different directions. And one of them is going to the north, where King James says to give his spirit rest. But then other translations talk about kind of releasing or appeasing his wrath. So some cool symbolism here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. Much more attention is given to the activity of God more than it is to the description of the mountains and what they are. Right. And so the mountains connected to the north and south country, but the vision leans on more what is heaven's activity.
Good.
What is God doing? What is he speaking? What is he saying? And he's in control of the things that seem fixed and firm.
I love that. One of the things I liked about it as I was reading it just through right here was Zechariah asks a question. And I think we've gone over this before, but as we engage with the scripture, there are going to be things we don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that God is involved. He's there. The guy who wrote it, you can talk to him. Or at least the one who inspired it. Mm-hmm. You can talk to him. Mm-hmm. You can say, what does this mean? And he may not answer you right away. I think we have talked about this. But just to, again, I'm just reminded that as we see this stuff, we can say, okay, God, what is this? What are you doing? Like one of the most important questions we can ask as we go through trials or whatever we're dealing with, one of the most important questions we can ask is, what are you doing? And this is what the angel is having Zechariah communicate to God's people, is you're dealing with this stuff locally. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to reveal to you what's happening epically.
Yeah.
In the spirit.
Yeah.
To your point, heaven. This is what God is doing. Mm-hmm. This is a story that you're a part of, even though you're just living it right here in your immediate vicinity. Mm-hmm. This is a story you're a part of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's fixed and firm in these bronze mountains mountains or the things that are happening before you aren't unnoticed by me, unseen by me.
Good.
And I'm working in it. I'm working in the midst of it. I can imagine how hard it would have been for the children of Israel to still see God working with where they are in this moment. You know?
Yeah.
And the grandness of what they were told that they were going to be, the blessing to all nations. And there are these other nations that are larger and more fixed in their place. And we have so much reason to be where we are because we stopped listening to you, God.
Mm.
And we are who you said we are. We're a stiff-necked people. And so we get tossed to and fro. Are you done with us?
Mm. Yeah, that's so good. One of the things, and I think I've talked about it, I know I've talked about it on the podcast, but what you start seeing from the exile and Daniel and Ezekiel and now Zechariah and Nehemiah and Ezra, what you start to see is a different idea about, it's not a different idea about God, but it's a different relationship with God in the sense of the Israelites or the Jews aren't in control of their own fate. Mm-hmm. They don't have a king. They don't have control over the land. They have to be given permission by Persia to even go to the quote unquote promised land. And that's still the situation with Jesus and the disciples under Rome. Like they're not in control, right? To that video you're not the one in control here.
Yeah.
But all that to say is, but God continually shows them, even though you may not be politically in control, that doesn't mean I'm not in control.
Yeah.
And how often, so that was such an important message to them in the moment, in the context of where they were. We're still in the middle of the story because if you don't know, in Zechariah 6 there, we're talking about the north. The north generally meant Babylon.
Yeah.
So symbolically, even though Babylon was kind of gone, but Babylon symbolized empire, the false empire, the false kingdom. And so he's saying, I'm going to put my wrath upon the nations. I'm going to put my wrath upon what is false. That's going to happen. That's what's happening in the spirit. And so that should give context to what we're doing in the moment. You're rebuilding the walls. You're rebuilding the temple, more the temple in Zechariah. And so you still get that vision of God in the New Testament of we don't have political power, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's a greater power. Like Jesus wasn't a priest. He didn't have he had no political power, no human power or status to speak of. And yet he was always in control of the moment because of the Spirit. And we see Paul, he's a prisoner in chains. He's telling everybody what to do.
Yeah.
And that's that's what we see in the New Testament. And for us, maybe you want to speak to this. How often do we feel a lack of control in what's going on, and how important it is to hear this for ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, control means if I can control things, I'm safe. If I can control things, I can predict when, where, how my life is going to turn out and the lives of others. And there's some value to that, because I need to have some self-control to allow people to flourish and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't account for, there's a place in control that doesn't account for my own sinfulness. Mm. And as God is communicating here, guys, me being in control is actually better for you and for the nations. Me circling, seeing what's going on, I know how to decipher what's fixed in this nation. And I know how to decipher who's in this nation, who's still seeking after me. Like there are some people in the land of the north that have appeased my wrath. And we want to get rid of the whole thing. We want to get rid of the whole nation, the whole mountain, the whole improperly organized empire society that is destructive. And God says, if you did that, I'm doing what I told to Abraham. If there's 10 people left there, then I'll have mercy. You know?
Yeah.
And so I love that about God's heart that I see here, is that he is not just trying to bring his wrath on the nations. He's actually trying to bring his mercy.
Well, because Babylon didn't, and then you could probably throw Persia in here. These empires didn't only persecute the Jews.
Yeah.
And that's part of Daniel's message to Nebuchadnezzar. Like, you were meant to be a tree where others could find shade and fruit, but you become something different.
Yeah. And if I'm in control, and if Israel's in control in its own way, it's going to not follow the heart of God.
Right. So good. Yeah. And just so people realize, I don't think the colors are exactly the same as far as red, black, or white and dappled. I think one of them is a little different in Revelation, but there are 4 horses and 4 horsemen, and they bring wrath, right? Although it's different. It's a different sort of idea. This is part of what angels would do. That's one of the roles of angels in the Old Testament, especially, was to go out and bring back reports, right? And so you kind of see some of that in here. And yeah, it's just some really, really cool imagery. And so for us, as we're doing things and dealing with issues, right? And we just already talked about it in the kind of beginning. What is heaven doing? What's God doing? What's the eternal context of what's happening in my immediate life? And God is so good to reveal those things. And again, he may only give you a piece of it, but I was kind of repeat some of Billy's sermon on Sunday, but Billy told the story about how he was young and he was a new Christian and working with this young man who was crude and graphic with sexual jokes or whatever he was doing. He didn't want to work with this kid, and so he just asked God to give him a word, and God showed him some trauma in the young man's past. And that's the kind of thing that God does. It's like, there's something more. There's something behind this. There's something behind what we see, people's actions. And that's why it's really dangerous to only deal with the actions. Not that the actions don't matter, but just dealing with the actions don't change the heart. And that's, the cart before the horse sort of idea. So, but, I love that. And God's still doing stuff. If we don't, depending on what you think about different political parties and who's in charge where and what people are doing, like, God's still in control.
Yeah.
He's still in control. And he will still hold nations, leaders, people. He will still hold people accountable. That is who he is. And no one's getting away with anything. The truth will win and be proven true in the end. And in that context, we build the church. We build the temple. We build the expression of worship, right worship on the earth. That's our role. And it gets hard. And we need that sort of bigger story.
Yeah. Yeah.
To properly do that.
Yeah.
Other thoughts before we get to the second half? My favorite.
The tension between the exiles and those who are still going to the land of the north. So like you just spoke of, like the other nations are being dragged into this story.
Right.
And as the children of Israel have been coming out and been given permission to build the temple, and God is still saying, I'm going to continue to allow that to happen. There are people who are still being brought into bondage by the land of the north, and God has a heart for what's happening to them.
Yeah. So good.
So how do you see us kind of participating with the implications of that as the church today?
That's a great question. I think that we have to, again, realize that we get to invest in the one thing that's going to last, and that's his people. So make sure that our priorities are correct in that. But then that we're also free enough to affirm when leaders or governments do the right thing, but also lovingly call to account when they are doing something that's hurtful.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I see is a church that's not free enough to do that with anybody. They'll do it with one political party or one leader, but they were really silent when similar things or other things were happening from the other party.
Yeah.
That's an American sort of thing. And part of the call of the church, and I think part of the issue, however, though, and I'm going to go back to what I said, we also have to be the model of what is right in our own spaces, in our families, in the church. Like, we have to be the model of living heaven on earth there. And while also being able to call forth, whether it's good or wrong or whatever, to the culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that there's, I don't want to call it a balance, but I think that's another thing that I see is people being so concerned with the political that there's not an accountability of their own personal.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that doesn't matter. It just matters that we call this out.
Yes.
It's like, no, that matters.
Yes.
But it also matters that you clean your own room.
Yeah.
I mean, to be symbolic about, that you were able to be honest about your own issues and your own character.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of this too is like, and I'm just going to explore the text a little bit. See those who are going to the land of the north, verse 8, have appeased my wrath in the land of the north. And the word of the Lord also came to me saying, take an offering from the exiles from Heldai, Tobijah, Jedediah, and you go the same day and enter to the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, where they have arrived from Babylon. So these groups that he's saying, these exiles, are these Jewish exiles or are these?
Yeah, so these are Jews who are part of the exiles that were allowed to return by Cyrus.
Okay.
And I don't know if they were rich men or I don't know who they were necessarily, but he's saying, you take these offerings from these men and you're going to do something with them.
So the people that are in verse 8, are those different from the people that are in verse 10?
Yeah, because he's saying the angels that go to the north are the ones who are going to give my wrath rest in the north. Like there's an angelic thing. And so now he's transitioning it in verse 9 to people, to people who have come from, symbolically at least, come from the north, right? Because Babylon was the original captors, and so those are men who have what does he say? Gold, silver, and you take them, you take their stuff, not take their stuff like steal it, but you receive their offering, their gifts for this purpose.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So the message that's been carried to the north has appeased, and then now we take an offering.
And now we're taking an offering from, when he says from the captives, or at least mine says from the captives.
Yeah.
And here's what I like about that. Just because you've been exiled and you have suffered some level of persecution, however deserved under God's sort of story here, you still have something to give.
Let's go.
You are not, we have to dignify people and let them know you've got something to give. And Jesus regularly did this. Go wash here, go do this. Like when he would heal people, he empowered them to go do something oftentimes, or to require something of them, not because they had to earn it, but because, like, again, back to the woman at the well, get me a drink of water. You came out here because you think you're all alone and you have nothing and whatever, but I'm going to dignify you and say, and this is what God does with all of us. God doesn't need anything I give him. He doesn't need me at all. But what is he doing? He's trying to disciple me and empower me because he has a goal in mind, which is to live as his son or a daughter and reign in the kingdom with him. So he's trying to dignify me and give me something to give back to him, not because he needs it, but because he's trying to teach me how to be a giver. Yeah.
And it, like you said, just in the midst of you being an exile, you're taking some things with you, but you have no real way to sustain and get more.
Good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're coming away from the economic strong space, and then you're coming into a space where you're in exile, where now and God is still saying, "Hey, now you really have to depend on me."
Yeah.
So I'm going to take an offering of where you're going to have even less.
I love this. Yeah, because it's a ruined city.
Yeah.
The walls are broken down, and they're having to rebuild it. Now give.
Yes. Dependence.
Well, and I'm also thinking back to Jeremiah, and I think it might be in Ezekiel too. But Jeremiah, I'm fairly certain we'd have to look it up. But Jeremiah, I believe, told the exiles, because he's like, this is going to happen. Plant while you're there.
Yeah.
Live, have children.
Yeah. Bless the place.
Bless it while you're there. Don't, and now that they're coming back, it's almost an expression of God blessed us. And he's going to bless us again, even here.
Yeah.
And because when you give, and I love that. I didn't think about that. Like when you give, even in that context of we're in a ruined city, there's no economy here. Mm-hmm. Like there's no, like your natural instinct would be to hoard, not give.
Yeah.
But God's calling these men to give.
As they come out. And it's not anything new that God ever did. You know, he did this with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt, and what was taken from them. He said, hey, I want to take up an offering so you can give to my tabernacle, because the most important thing was like build a place for me to dwell with you, and a place to be able to worship.
Very good. Not
a place to be able to hold on to your things so you can have a good life.
Mm. And that's a good connection, because this is very reminiscent of that idea.
Yeah.
We're going to set up right worship with the tabernacle coming out of Egypt. And they did it in the wrong way when they made the idol, when they made the golden calf.
Yeah.
And Aaron lied. I just threw this stuff into the fire. And it's one of the funniest moments. It's like comedy. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But then later, and I'm trying to remember the exact wording, but then later when Moses calls for offerings, didn't he have to make them stop? Like, wasn't it too much at one point? Didn't he have to make them stop?
I'm not sure.
It's either there or maybe in another part later. There's one point where the priest or whoever starts asking for donations, and he had to make them stop.
Yeah,
like it's enough. You know, you have something to give.
Yeah,
and that's something that was really important when I read in When Helping Hurts. I don't know if you read that. But I
heard about the principle, but not the book.
But in When Helping Hurts, and Toxic Charity is a good one, but it's not as spiritual to me. But When Helping Hurts, it was like what we used to do is we used to go into these poor neighborhoods and go, what can you do well? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm great at this. Can I pay you to do that?
Yeah.
Can I dignify that you have something to give that's worthwhile?
Yeah.
Not instead of going into a poor neighborhood and going, what do you need? What can I give you?
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't mean they don't have needs, but what it means is like changing that mentality of maybe I have something to give. Maybe I have something that I can contribute here. And because isn't that what God does with the Spirit? I don't have anything to give. I don't have anything to give anybody, but God says, let me give you my Spirit. Now you have something to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you have something to give, and it's eternal and it's infinite. It's the resources of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it shows the redemptive nature of God's heart to be able to use what was amassed in a perverted culture and then turn that over to usher in right worship.
Just like he did with Egypt.
Yep.
You took Egyptian stuff that they didn't get morally, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're taking the Persian stuff or the Babylonian stuff. It's technically Persian, but now we're going to do something. But I love this kind of connection, because what we're seeing is they did it to build a physical place. Mm-hmm. But here in Zechariah, it's different. Mm-hmm. The right worship is now crowning of a person.
That's it. And so here's the connection that as we see the things that are in our culture, we live in, let's just say Babylon, and we see things and we bring things out, we can use them to glorify God.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
Be it music, art,
yes,
entertainment, fashion, whatever it is, there are these things that we can bring out, and then we can offer it as a gift back to God, the things that we learn in unredeemed culture. God still has something that he desires to do with this, going to crown Jesus.
Yes. It's going to reflect
Jesus.
Yes. I'll give you a quick story. This wasn't really like a sinful thing or a bad thing. I was thinking about this today. I actually wrote about it this morning. That's one of the reasons it's on my mind. But so when we were living in Korea, one of the cultural things in Korea was when two men were close friends, they would hold hands walking down the street. It was an outward expression of their affection to one another as brothers, even though they weren't maybe physical brothers. They were friends, close friends.
Yeah.
So even though I knew this, it was kind of odd to see it when it's two Korean army men.
Yeah. Wow.
Holding hands, walking down the street. It's like, okay, I know they don't mean it in any sort of sexual, romantic sense, right?
So fingers locked or like just hand in hand?
Just hand in hand.
Okay, cool. Let's go.
There was a man at our school. So my wife and I were both missionary teachers at an international Christian school. And there was a man who worked part-time at our school. His name is Mr. Song. And he was an elderly man. He's probably in his 60s at this point. And he was kind of the handyman of the school. And he had, like a lot of Koreans culturally, he had a couple different jobs. Like he did a number of things. But one of his jobs was he worked as the handyman, and he was like best friends with his pastor, and he like would pray every morning. Like he and his pastor would get up, and he was just a very godly man. And of course, I got to know him really well over a couple of years. We were there for 4 years, so this was a couple of years in. And I was walking down the street with this man, with this elderly Korean man. We're walking down the street in public, and he reaches out and grabs my hand, which is pretty unheard of in a lot of ways. Number one, because it was cross-cultural and racial. I guess not something you would do to somebody who wasn't Korean, right? And not something you would do to someone who was so much younger than you. To treat them as an equal.
Yeah.
But here I almost cried. Like I was holding back tears in the middle of a street in Korea.
Wow.
Because what this man was saying to the world was, this is my brother. He and I are brothers. Deal with it.
Yeah.
But he took something that was from his own culture and used it to express something eternal and spiritual.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily sinful to do that in his culture, right? Not a sinful thing. But it was a cultural expression that he was able to adjust. And redeem in a way that meant more than it normally would have, right? And that's the kind of thing, right? It's like how can we infuse what's just normal worldly stuff, and sometimes could have come from whatever other means that aren't so cool.
Yeah.
But how can we leverage these things and redeem them into something real and true and good, and that expresses a different reality that calls people, right?
Yeah.
That might have offended, like what Mr. Song did might have offended people. I don't know. I was too busy trying not to cry. But what he did was it might have offended some people. There was anti-American sentiment even back then in Korea, right? I'm just saying, like, it might have offended people, but he was saying there's a transcendent reality where we are brothers that goes beyond culture and race and all of these things. And so here, God is saying, hey, tell these guys they got something to give and receive their offering. And then he says to take the silver and gold and make an elaborate crown, set it on the head of Joshua, the high priest. Now, we've already talked about Joshua, right? Because it's a couple chapters ago. where God cleanses him spiritually.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to happen with like oil and all this stuff, like this whole like physical thing you were supposed to do with a priest from the Old Testament law. But God says, I'm doing this spiritually. I'm spiritually cleansing him as a high priest. Now he's saying, now go to the high priest, make this crown, and then speak to him saying, thus says the Lord of hosts, behold, the man whose name is the branch. From his place he shall branch out, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Yes, he shall build the temple of the Lord. He shall bear the glory, and he shall sit and rule on his throne, and he shall be a priest on his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. Now the elaborate crown shall be for a memorial in the temple of the Lord for these same men, right? Helem. Mm-hmm. It uses a different name there, but I think it's the same 4 men. For these 4 men, and even those from afar shall come and build the temple of the Lord. Other nations.
Yeah.
Back to other nations. Then you shall know that the Lord of hosts has sent me to you, and this shall come to pass if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. Okay, thoughts?
It's just the way that God is crowning his king and priest is going to be in ways that were unexpected. Like we're talking about, like using what would seem tainted things, redeeming them and using them to glorify. And then that will be a signal that the nations have some part in this. You know what I mean? Like one of the things that I love hip hop music, and I love Christian hip hop as well too. And hip hop music was born out of a cultural cry for freedom from oppression, and a collective song and rhythm of a form of life that was hard to handle. And as I see Christian hip hop continue to grow, I'm so thankful for it because it bridges in something that I grew up on that was born from a place of a real place. It doesn't have to be pure, but it was real and it was raw. And then it became perverted and tainted in really intense ways that I think have harmed the community that I come from. But then to see it redeemed and bring so many people to Christ now and be the soundtrack to their faith, and it glorifies Jesus, that's what I see here. You know?
Yeah.
The things that were brought out of Babylon that are going to be used to be offered to crown the right worship of the right one. And there's going to be a formed temple, a place for people to come in and observe that right crowned, right worship. Like,
and coming from their culture and
Yes.
their ethnicity,
Yes.
they're going to help build this.
Yes.
And that doesn't happen in Nehemiah and Ezra.
Yes.
Like
it
they
is.
don't let other nations even participate
Yes.
in this. They don't let Samaritans, they don't let other nations even. So he's speaking ahead of something that's going to happen under this marriage between, or combined role of king and priest, which we know of as the Messiah, right? So he's crowning the high priest, and he's bringing back into one role, one person, the idea of king and priest. And the guy's name is Joshua, which is a form of Yeshua.
Yeah.
So that's prophetic.
Yeah.
And he calls him the branch, which I think goes back into Isaiah. right? This is the branch. And so he's reusing Isaiah's prophetic language here. And from his place, he will branch out. By the way, I think in Isaiah is talking about he's the root and the branch, right? All that stuff of Jesse and the Davidic messianic sort of prophecy. Yes, he will build the temple of the Lord. Now we're getting into, what does Jesus say? Tear this temple down, and I'm going to rebuild it in 3 days. He's going to rebuild the temple of the Lord. It's going to be his body. I'm just making a lot of these connections just as we go through it. And the council of peace shall be between them both. What is it? How does it say?
The two offices is what it says.
The two offices will be what? There'll be priest on the throne, and then there's going to be peace between the two offices of priest and king.
Peace between the two offices.
The two offices. Okay. Now,
the council of peace.
Now we're going to go back a little bit to Adam. Okay. Who was Adam supposed to be?
Yeah.
On the earth.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have dominion on the earth, right? Because God gives him a wife and says, now be fruitful, multiply, and take dominion. Go take dominion. So that's a ruling governmental element because they had the image of God. They bore the image of God.
Yeah.
But he was also God's representative on the earth. Between him, he had a priesthood type role.
Yeah. I mean, he was in the sanctuary of God.
He was in the sanctuary of God, ministering before God, and between God and creation.
Yeah.
Naming animals. Like, there was a conjoined role of government and intercession, we could say. Intimacy, all based on intimacy.
Yeah.
And those two roles get divided throughout Israel's history due to sin in Samuel, partly, right? But also partly because of sin with Moses, right? The original idea was that every Israelite was supposed to be a priest, right? A kingdom of priests. But God was the king. And so, but now there's this second Adam. There's a new Adam where God is saying, look, I'm going to bring this back into one person.
Yeah.
It was always in one person. But now I'm going to express it again. And what we're going to have in the future is a Messiah who was both a priest and a king. And those two roles are now one. That's the Christ, the anointed one, because priests were anointed and kings were anointed. And so when Jesus is anointed by the Holy Spirit, you can say that's one of the reasons why that moment of him, the Holy Spirit coming down on Jesus at the baptism, this is my son and all that stuff. That's why that's so important. You can almost make the argument it's important that John did it because John was a Levite. I mean, there's so much to it.
Yeah.
But here he's saying, look, these men who came out of Persia, came out of exile, came back into the promise, they have something to give, and you're going to take what they give, and their gifts are going to crown, and then they're going to crown the priest, unifying these roles once again. And then one of my favorite parts is you're going to keep it around in the temple. And these men's names are going to be remembered for what they did, right? For how they contributed to that. And that's how you're going to know. That's how you're going to know that I'm real, is that this happened.
You know, and I love that the participation. So the branch is going to build the temple. And then I like how, the NESB kind of gives an alternate reading of 15. Those who come from afar off will build in the temple.
Okay.
So Jesus is going to come and do his work. And then we're going to be built into that work and build on that work.
On that foundation.
Yes.
So good. I love it. And my sort of midrash wondering comment or question is, was that crown still there in the temple 400 years later when Jesus goes into the temple at 12 years old?
Yeah.
Did he see that? I don't know. It doesn't say it was, but I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder. I mean, to be fair, there had been a lot that happened to Judah and the Jews and Israel
in between that time,
between the Greeks and then the Romans, and uprisings and all sorts of things that happened in the temple, because you remember they defiled the temple and all that sort of stuff. And, so a lot of stuff happened.
Yeah.
So probably not, but I just wonder, like, wouldn't that be a cool
Presidency,
chosen moment? Like, I could just see the chosen bringing that, like, Jesus is 12 years old, goes into the temple for the first time, being able to go into the inner court and sees it sitting there, sees it just sitting there, because the ark wasn't there. The ark wasn't there, but that crown was.
Yeah.
And I also like this. If you, and again, I would love your comments on this, but if you want your name to be remembered, give to the crowning of that person.
Yeah.
If you want your name to be remembered, that's how you do it.
And even this, you could have a play on the crown that was given him in his first coming was the crown of thorns. And that crown of thorns represents the sin of mankind. And my sin and him taking upon it and the infliction that he took upon it.
That's so good, man.
It sobers me to the reality of, like, man, the weight of that. That was a part of his shedding of blood. And so now on the other end, man, I want to give so much more.
Right.
So,
right. Give what I have that's of worth.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't necessarily, we don't need to make this like a thing about giving to the church necessarily, but when God asks you to give something, you weren't going to keep it anyway. Like, this wasn't like when you die, this doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
So he's saying, I'm going to let you take stuff that doesn't eternally matter. Now it eternally matters. I'm going to let you translate stuff that doesn't matter in the natural. It's only temporary.
Yeah.
You're not going to get to keep it ultimately. Now you get to keep it.
Yeah.
This is how you keep it. This is how you keep your stuff. You give it. You offer it. And that's such a gift. That's a powerful thing.
I can't wait. I'm just like envisioning seeing like him have recycled so much of my natural things into spiritual, eternal things that are going to manifest back out. Like,
but it has to be within the understanding of what you're participating in.
Yeah.
That's part of what is important, that when Jesus teaches, if you give a cup of cold water, if you honor a prophet or you give a cup of cold water to a prophet, because he's a prophet, you will receive the same reward as the prophet. You now enter into the same, just serving, but you're not serving. You're serving because there's an understanding of a spiritual reality happening.
Yeah.
So it's not just giving in and of itself. It's a giving with an understanding, like Paul says in 2 Corinthians, of sowing and reaping.
Yeah.
You will by no means lose it. You can't lose it. This is how you know. This is how you don't lose it. Jesus says, if you want to store up for yourselves treasures on earth, but you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
If you want to store up treasures in heaven, give to the poor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he's giving us the investment strategy. And that's partly what we see here is that calling to invest in the context of, look, God's going to, so go back to what we had just the vision before, God's going to hold the false empires accountable. Don't invest there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Invest here.
Yeah.
Because people are going to come from those other nations and they're going to invest here too. And we see more of that. We see a little clearer picture of that as you get into Zechariah later. But it's all in Isaiah and Zechariah and some in Jeremiah where and Psalms, like all these other nations are going to be citizens of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Like what an offensive thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about it, like Egyptians and the Philistines are going to be citizens here. Like they tried to kill us. I just read through part of Chronicles and Samuel, 2 Samuel? No, 1 Kings. When David becomes king and the Philistines hear about it, they take up arms. Like it's fighting time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, these people are going to be citizens. And how does that change how we treat people that act like our enemy? That's my question. How should it, at least?
My hope is that it would transform us to see the beauty of human potential that God sees, and create imagination.
So good.
You know, like to think of what God saw in me because of what he placed in me and just didn't get done with me because of my foolishness and stupidity that probably frustrated him.
Sure.
You know, and so I think that that's what it should do to us. It should see that every person is capable of being useful.
And that if we get into Ephesians, which was written to a Jew and Gentile congregation, right? He says, you know, you weren't saved by works, but you were saved for good works that God had prepared in advance for you to do. So when God sees me and you in our foolishness and stupidity, that's what he sees.
Yeah.
And how can I use my imagination in a godly way, right? Because we can use our imaginations in ungodly ways. But how do I use my imagination in a godly way to say, I wonder what God had planned for this person?
Yeah.
Because that's what he's looking at. Because he's not limited by their temporary stupidity.
Yeah.
And he wasn't limited by mine or yours.
Or Paul's.
Or Paul's. Or Peter's.
Yeah.
Or Moses's.
Yeah.
Or David's, for that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, for any of them.
And even back to this, to Israel's.
Right. Even Israel's. Even the church of today. No, you're still my bride.
Yeah.
I see what you can be.
Yeah.
I see what you will be. And that's where he's leading us. And how do we invest in that?
Yeah.
All right, it's been an hour. Anything else before we close?
Nah. I'm stirred.
Me too. Me too. This is a good one.
Yeah.
We talked about things. So for those of you who don't know, like we try to talk about it beforehand, you know. So and so some good things came up.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
All right. So, bro, if you will just kind of pray us out. And then we'll close.
Father, thank you that you had a plan with a man at the center of it, and we get to use our lives to crown him as the King of Glory, the priest and the prophet. And so, Lord, help us use what we gain out of the world to put him on display and worship him and build for him, because it pleases you and because it's going to make our world a better place to be. So I pray every person listening has inspired hope, inspired imagination, to know that they're useful to you because you love them. So be it.
Amen.